Entitled Mum thinks we control the weather. I was formerly employed at a large Orlando, Florida theme park. You know, the one with the mouse. Backstory. This takes place in the middle of July, and if you've ever been in Central Florida in the summer, you know it rains pretty much every single day between 3 and 7 p.m. In my role, I carried a radio like a walkie-talkie. This day, I'm in one of the parks going to a location to perform my job, and as I'm walking through the park, the skies open. I mean, it's like buckets of water being poured out on you. I enter the location and see lots of people in ponchos and rain parkas standing around. I rarely perform my duties in the parks when they're open. When I do have to go in the parks, I usually walk with my head down, hoping no guests stop me. However, this wasn't the case on this day. Here comes the entitled mum. She walks up to me, madder than a hornet. She stands in front of me, huffing and puffing, and demands to know when the rain is going to stop. This is how the exchange took place. Sir, when is this rain going to stop? My children would like to enjoy the theme park. Mum, I can't be certain, but there are storms usually in this area every day. But you're ruining my kids' vacation. Excuse me, Mum? I say for years to bring them here, and all it does is bleep in rain. This is all your fault. Mom, there isn't anything we can do about the weather. Mother Nature is a fickle lady. This is where she goes off the rails. That's BS. I know you have some kind of way to stop the weather if you want. You people are just understaffed and can't accommodate the people here. What have I just read? I can assure you that is far from the case, Mom. We want all of our guests to have the best time, because if you don't, you won't come back and visit with us. You guys are the reason we're here. She then gets in my face, nose to nose, and says, "Go frick yourself, make it stop raining, get on your little radio, and you better call someone to find something out." I am not the most patient person in the world, and I could feel the anger boiling inside me. I had to disengage myself from the psycho entitled mum, or I would lose it and my job. When there were really bad thunderstorms, like the one we were experiencing that day, we would get random weather updates on our radios. Just then, the alert sound for an impending weather update came over my radio. I excused myself from the woman and stepped away to listen to the weather updates. The person said the thunderstorm would exit property around 4:35 p.m. I returned to the entitled mum and said this in the most sarcastic way I could, knowing I would probably get in some kind of trouble. "Mom, I just spoke to God, and he said the rain would be gone by 4:35 p.m. But shockingly, the entitled mum looked at me and said, "Thank you." I just stood there with my mouth open, and I took this as a sign for me to exit the scene. Flash forward about an hour, and I'm still in this park. The rain stopped, the sun was back out, and it was humid as heck. Just out of the corner of my eye, I spot the entitled mum, and she's making a beeline straight for me. I think to myself, great, it was nice working here. She says, "Thank you for calling someone so they would make it stop raining." I have a, what? Look at my face, and just say, huh? I knew you guys could turn it off. I still have a what look at my face, and I just mumble, "You're welcome, Mom." I walk back to my work truck, laughing the entire way. Alright, that is just the icing on the cake. The fact that she actually thinks that you physically stopped the rain and it wasn't just natural is incredible. I love this woman. You know what's crazy is that now this woman is going to tell the story for the rest of her life of the time at Disneyland where she forced an employee to literally stop the rain so her kids could go on the rides. Incredible. Now, if you like that first story, you're going to love this one. Why is there no snow? So, I saw someone else post recently about a lady asking about changing the weather, and it reminded me of a similar story. I manage a motel in a very small rural town that blows up during the winter as we live next to a mountain. Without a doubt, every year it would snow during winter over the town, but this year we were not graced by it. A guest who checked in the night prior came into the front desk the moment I flipped the open sign and started nonsense ranting. When her ranting was finally over, I gave her a moment to potentially say anything else and then asked, "I'm sorry, what's the problem? Why is there no snow?" "On the mountain, I assure you there's plenty." No, I mean down here. I don't want to drive my kids all the way up the mountain for snow." "Well, unfortunately, it seems we haven't had any reach down here. The mountain will most likely have had their snow machines working though to help accommodate." "But I don't want to go up the mountain. I want the snow here so I don't have to drive my children all the way up there." "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do to assist with that matter." "Then change the weather." The weather?" "Yes, change the weather. I brought my kids here for the snow." "How would you like me to change the weather?" "I don't know, get one of those stupid machines to spread snow down here or something." "Yeah, I don't believe that I'll be able to arrange that." "Well, figure it out." At this point, I knew we were both yelling at brick walls, and I really needed to put food in me, as I didn't have enough time to have breakfast before I arrived at work. So I calmly said, "If you would like snow, then I'm sure there's some in the freezer I can scrape off and hand to you in a cup." No, this did not satisfy her. Yes, she was very angry and left a very heated and slightly deranged review. And yes, I laughed very hard after she stormed out complaining to the heavens that life was very unfair to her for not giving her snow. And there you go, just like London buses, you wait ages for a story to come along about a Karen that wants someone to physically change the weather, and then two come along at once. Incredible scenes. I mean, genuinely, like, we've seen some stupid stuff over the course of my channel, right, and on this subreddit in particular, but like changing the weather or literally asking somebody to change the weather, it's gotta be right up there, doesn't it? I mean, it's top 3, that's for sure. Entitled abusive brother-in-law wants to drop his daughter at my home whenever he feels like it. My husband blames me for not allowing it. I am Shannon, a 33-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband Tony for 13 years. We have a daughter, Janelle, who is 12. It's been a very rocky 13 years because of Tony, his brother Miles, who is 31, and their family. Let me give you a little backstory. In 2020, Miles was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, and the family has done nothing but enable it. He started arguing with Janelle, my daughter, while she was talking to his mother, her grandmother. I came out of the room because I heard it in the hallway, and he was literally facing down, a 6'2" man, a 10-year-old girl, threatening to put his hands on her because she talked back to him. I stood between him and told him he's not going to put his hands on anyone. His mother tried to quiet him and get him out of the house, while Tony is sitting outside on the porch listening to everything that's happening. I asked Tony why he didn't do anything, and he said his mother had it under control. I was seething and couldn't believe it. A month later, Miles comes with his daughter Jessica, who is 6 years old. I'm in the shower and I hear him arguing with my daughter, saying, "I'm gonna put my hands on you. Your father and mother can't do anything about it." I immediately came out of the shower, but he was gone and Jessica was there. I told Janelle to put her clothes on and that we're leaving the house. I called my husband and told him we're leaving, but Jessica is in the house. Miles returns and sees us waiting outside for an Uber. He starts berating us at the top of his lungs, calling us all kinds of names. We quickly got in the Uber when it came, but Miles came up to the Uber and punched the window on the side I was sitting, telling us to go. I called the police when I arrived at my parents' place. They took my statement, gave me a report, and then left. I heard that Miles was harassing people in the streets after we left, berating them in the same way. I told my husband that Miles needs to be taken to the hospital or else he'll end up in jail or worse. He told his parents and they did nothing. Instead, they took him in where they were working and were watching him. He saw my husband come by and Miles then stepped away from them and came to our house. After things escalated drastically, the police were called and he was taken to jail. It is now 2022 and I've not seen any of them, Miles or his family, since that incident. My husband's birth family has been trying to get us to be around them when we'd rather swallow hot coals. Mother's Day, Miles asked my husband if he can bring Jessica to see Janelle out of the blue. I almost choked because of the audacity and said no. I told my husband that no one has apologized or atoned for anything, including him. Jessica told me in 2020 that her father told her not to trust me and that I don't love her. It hurt her because she said she told them that I do love her. I've had her since she was a baby on and off. How could I not? I also told him that in the future, his mother can bring her by when we're ready. A week later, when I went to a store 2 blocks away, Janelle's grandfather brings Jessica and Miles over. Her grandpa usually knocks the door and she goes out to greet him, but this time Miles and Jessica were at the door too. Janelle had a panic attack while Miles apologized for his past behavior and tried to give her a hug. Janelle said she was sick and backed up. Jessica, however, came in and spoke for a few minutes with her. My daughter called me immediately afterwards in a panic, telling me what happened. The way my heart dropped into my toes and rolled around, it took me less than 5 minutes to be back home. Once again, I called my husband and told him what happened, then had him put an extra bolt on the door. Today, my husband calls me and asks if Jessica can stay for a few hours. I said no, you have to give me a bigger heads up. She can come by next Saturday. About a half hour later, me and Janelle, hear a knock on the door. I check by the window and see Jessica and her father. Now, I'm confused because I definitely said next Saturday, plus I don't want Miles here for obvious reasons. They leave after a while. Then my husband comes home while I'm once again in the shower. I hear a little voice after I turn the water off, and who's in the kitchen? Jessica. I told her, "Hi baby, you can come next Saturday. We're gonna have a fun day." All the while, Tony was ushering her out the door. I asked Janelle how she got in here, and she said that Tony had brought her inside. While my husband was leaving, I told him to make sure the doors are locked because I don't want anyone coming in here. He said nobody is trying to come in here, and I mentioned his brother knocking at the door. Clearly, he had no idea. Then he said his brother was leaving Jessica with him. That's impossible though, because he was at work. He's staring at me intensely, and I asked if there was a problem. He starts shouting at me, saying I'm being stupid because you don't want Jessica to come over. You're holding on to the past. He's making it seem as if I just don't want her to come over and that I want to keep her away from Janelle. I tell him to get out of my face and go. He continues to shout and then proceeds to bump his chest into mine. I'm still naked, fresh out the shower. I tell him to stop before I call my brother. He tells me to call him, knowing he'll do absolutely nothing if my brother were to show up, and continues harassing me. I told him if he touches me, I'm going to call the police. He said call them for what? Then proceeds to poke me passive-aggressively, trying to egg me into retaliating. I continue to tell him to leave, and he has to go back to work, so finally leaves. My mother thinks I should drop it and let Jessica come over whenever, when I know they just want a free babysitter, plus I don't want to deal with these issues anymore. Nah, sorry, it's your house, your rules, you can do what you like. If you don't want someone to be in your house, then that's absolutely fine, it's on you. Also, it's not as if you're just saying, I don't want you in here for no valid reason. Like, this family has caused you so much stress and made you so uncomfortable and abused you. Let's be realistic here. It makes complete sense what you've chosen to do, and yes, definitely stick by it. I've got to say though, it's not just Miles that's abusing you. Tony, what is he doing? I mean, that's physical abuse at the end right there. What is he doing? He is a mug. Are you sure you want to be with him? Now, we do actually have a little update from OP that I'll put on screen right now. Here we go. Janelle and I have taken some of our things and are currently staying with a friend. We live in New York. We left after Tony went to work today. I'm open to options and looking into the best next steps from here. My daughter is very intelligent. She knows that what Miles and Tony's family is doing is wrong and is very outspoken when it comes to them, which they don't like. Then OP says, thank you so much for your responses. I'm overwhelmed in the best way. Thank you for validating that I wasn't overreacting and actually abused on levels I didn't consider, especially from my husband. That's what I'm saying. It's not just Miles that's a problem. You gotta look at your own family too. My mum would text herself things she thought I was saying about her as proof to ground me. When I was 13, my family decided to no longer have a relationship with my mum, and that also meant cutting themselves off from my little brother and I. I completely understand why now. When I got my first phone, my mum would have me turn it into her at 7 p.m. I wasn't allowed to have my phone with me at night. If she noticed a text chain was missing, then automatically she assumed it was because I was talking about her, when actually I was talking about embarrassing sexual fanfics with my friends. When this happened, my mum the next day would come into my room showing me some random number texting her, saying I was talking to my aunts, my uncle, or even my dad about her, who I never even talked to my whole life. I'd always tell her this never happened, and she'd just take my phone. I'd realize later that she would also start texting my friends and even boyfriend later on, acting like me. That is mental. She would do this all throughout high school, playing the victim card and running to me crying. I was so confused, wondering who the frick is getting me in trouble like this all the time. I would comfort her and tell her I never said any of this, but she never believed me. In college, my freshman year, she was arrested for identity theft again and didn't have much time to fight me on her delusions. Junior year, a political movement started and me and her were both on other sides of the movement. I hated coming home because I wanted to avoid politics, but she would always say some ignorant stuff and I'd always have to correct her. I texted my friends back at college how much I really despised my mum's mentality because one day we got into a big argument. That day, she comes into my room saying, "Look what one of your friends sent me." Another random number telling my mum that she's racist and claiming to be my friend. This was the best part. I looked at her and said none of my friends sent that. I just asked them all, and they all said no. She asked if I was going to deny it, and I told her, no, I said that. I was telling my friends how dumb you are. She started crying right in front of me, asking why I would say such hurtful things about her to my friends. I think in that moment I had a realization. My whole childhood and teen life, this psycho was texting herself mean things she thought I was saying about her to make me feel guilty for things I never did. She wanted me to beg, cry, tell her how much I love her, and tell her those were lies. The minute I denied it, it broke her. It's been 2 years and we do not talk anymore. A few days during no contact, she would text me on random numbers saying she was going to ruin my life. I would screenshot this and show it to my brother and he would tell me, oh, that's mum crying because that same number is texting me mean stuff too. So she never really stopped her bull. Different number now, but I just feel silly that she did this my whole life and it took me so long to realize. I mean, yeah, maybe with the benefit of hindsight it becomes obvious, but you know, that's your mum. Inherently, you're going to trust her because that is just a natural biological thing. I don't really know if you can blame yourself for that. In fact, I definitely wouldn't. I mean, clearly she's just a very strange woman, probably has a lot of issues. The fact that she's been caught for identity theft before and is doing this sort of stuff all really adds up, doesn't it? I just don't really get it from her perspective. Maybe trying to validate her own feelings. I don't know. Strange. Can you imagine how trippy that would gotta be though, like as a kid, you know that you've not sent a message that your mum is now showing that you've sent on your phone and asking about it. And you're like, how on earth, or who has done that to me? You would never at any moment think that your mum has done that. That's just crazy. So overall, I definitely would not blame yourself for not realizing it. Your mother is just insane.